In 1943, the Wehrmacht was, tank by tank, the most feared fighting force the world had ever built. The Blitzkrieg doctrine swept through Poland in a few weeks, France in 6, and pushed deep into the Soviet Union before winter finally slowed it down. No one stopped that machine with rifles. No one. This time, it's facing 107 million people who all have a weapon.
Playground rules. As always, no U.S. government, no military, no allies intervening on either side. Just armed people organized into local militia groups, bringing everything they legally own. And on the other side, the Wehrmacht at its absolute peak, taken entirely out of its historical context and pointed at America. Let's go. By 1943, Germany had over 9 million men under arms, across every branch, backed by the best engineered armor of the war. The Panzer IV as the workhorse, the Tiger I just entering service as the thing everyone else was terrified of.
The Luftwaffe still fielded thousands of aircraft, including the Bf-109 and the new FW-190, arguably the best piston fighter in the world at that point. On raw engineering and battlefield experience, this is the most dangerous version of this army that ever existed.
There's just one problem, and it's the same problem that ended their last attempt to cross water against a well-armed population.
In 1940, Germany tried to invade Britain. Operation Sea Lion, same army near its earlier peak, against a target 21 miles away across the English Channel. It never happened. Not because German soldiers weren't good enough, because the Kriegsmarine never had the ships, and the Royal Navy and RAF made the crossing too costly to attempt. 21 miles. That's the distance they couldn't cross.
The Atlantic Ocean is roughly 3,000 miles wide. Germany's real naval strength was never a surface invasion fleet. It was the U-boat, built to sink cargo ships one at a time in the dark, not to ferry panzer divisions across an ocean in daylight.
Get a convoy of troop transports moving, and every satellite image, every merchant vessel broadcasting its position gives away the buildup months in advance. Same problem the Soviets have in this series, except worse, because the Wehrmacht in 1943 has even less blue water navy than the USSR ever built.
Say some of it gets through anyway. Landing craft, converted freighters, whatever they can scrape together. Hitting a stretch of the eastern seaboard. Blitzkrieg doctrine needs one thing above everything else to work: a front line to punch through. Fast armor, close air support, and infantry pouring through the gap before the enemy can regroup. It's the most effective offensive doctrine anyone had built up to that point in history.
It also needs open country and a defined enemy position. There's no front line in a country where every third house has a rifle in the closet. A Tiger tank rolling down a suburban street isn't punching through a defensive line. It's driving past 300 guys with deer rifles who scattered into houses the second they heard the engine. The tank is nearly untouchable to small arms fire. The infantry riding behind it, resupplying it, guarding its flanks, is not.
Here's where 1943 Germany actually has a real advantage, and it's a big one. The FW-190 and Bf-109 own the sky against anything a civilian militia can put up. Nobody's got surface-to-air missiles, and even wartime German anti-aircraft doctrine is more advanced than anything a hunting rifle can answer. For the first stretch of this invasion, anything moving in daylight in open ground is a target from above.
But the Luftwaffe by 1943 was already stretched dangerously thin, holding off the growing Allied bomber campaign over Germany itself, and fighting on the Eastern Front. Pull enough of it away for an American invasion, and you're flying an already thin force 3,000 miles from any repair depot, any spare parts factory, any fuel refinery. Air superiority doesn't mean much once the planes start running out of runways to land on and gas to fill them with.
This is the one that actually sinks it. Nazi Germany's single biggest strategic weakness in the real war wasn't tanks or manpower. It was oil. The entire push into the Caucasus in 1942 happened because Germany was desperately short on fuel to run the war machine it had already built. Synthetic fuel plants were working around the clock just to keep the Eastern Front moving. Now, take that same fuel-starved economy
and ask it to run an amphibious invasion 3,000 miles across an ocean. Then keep panzer divisions running through a country the size of a continent against an enemy who doesn't need supply convoys because every fighter is already standing on their own land with their own truck and their own gas can. Every mile the Wehrmacht pushes inland is a mile further from a fuel source that barely existed to begin with.
They'd probably get a beachhead, maybe hold a coastal pocket for a while on pure quality of equipment and doctrine. But an invasion that couldn't cross 21 miles of English Channel in 1940, run by an economy that couldn't keep its own tanks fueled on the Eastern Front, isn't crossing an ocean and then conquering a continent full of armed civilians. The tanks are the best in the world. The gas tank behind them is empty.
Chance of U.S. gun owners winning? 81%. And if you want to see what happens when an army that actually solved the ocean crossing problem tries this instead, that video's right there.